Hello to all the youth rights activists and to anybody else on YouTube who's watching this. It is now 2013 at the time this video is being made. It's been 3 days since 2013. So to start off the year, I'd like to talk about how to be effective youth rights activists, what we need to do. I'm just going to talk about some overall principles. I think that it's much more effective for us to be positive, to have a positive attitude rather than to be negative. We are going to get angry at times when children and teenagers are not treated fair. We're going to sometimes get angry. And we should get angry. We should get angry at times when children and teenagers are mistreated and when people aren't treated fair because they're younger, aren't given the same rights because they're younger. But overall, I think we really do need to be positive. Being young, being a teenager, it should be a fun and exciting time in your life. That's how we should see it. A lot of people say, oh, that being a teenager is hard and all that. They talk about how hard it is to be a teenager. Well, being a teenager can sometimes be hard, but that doesn't mean it's always hard. And overall, I don't think it should be a hard time in your life, at least not in a bad way. Sometimes it's good to have things hard. Sometimes you might want things to be hard. You might want a challenge. For instance, in school, if you sign up for the more difficult classes, or in sports, if you sign up for the varsity team, or even with video games, anybody who plays video games, with most video games have the settings screen where you can choose easy, medium, and hard. Even with something recreational like video games, you might put it on hard because you want the challenge. So if the teenagers are hard, it should be hard in that good way, a good, healthy challenge. It doesn't always have to be hard. It should be a fun and enjoyable time. Growing up is something to look forward to. That's how growing up should be seen, as something to look forward to, not something to dread. Martin Luther King, he was a very effective civil rights activist. And he was a very positive person. He had this dream, and he just had a very good outlook on life. He was an optimist. He was just the way he conducted himself and the way he lived life. He was a very positive person and a very effective person. And that's how we need to be. Like I said, we are going to get angry, and some of us might be more aggressive about certain youth rights than others, like me, for instance. I can be aggressive to the point where I encourage teenagers to, in some cases, use self-defense, or use force in self-defense. For instance, in schools where they can get paddled with big wooden boards like this one, bigger than that, as a matter of fact. 19 states, they apparently still allow it by law, and in the remaining 31 states, who's to say that stuff doesn't happen there? Just because something's against the law doesn't mean people don't do it, so I wouldn't be surprised if students sometimes get paddled even in states where it's against the law. As a matter of fact, I know of cases of that happening. So that is something I am very angry about, by the way, that students can be struck by wooden boards, but that they can be hit with paddles in school. And that, as I said in my other videos, we should be like Canada, where they ban it completely in schools. And in Canada, not even parents can spank a child who's over the age of 12. And look, in Canada, you don't have school shootings or school violence the way you do here in the United States. I think Canada sets a really good role model. The teen pregnancy rate in Canada is 1/3 of what it is in the United States. So, but I do see hope in this. I do think we could ban this stuff. But like I said, I can sometimes be aggressive about stuff. I sometimes get angry about stuff. Like I said, teenagers should use self-defense, should learn to use force in self-defense if really necessary against teachers or even against parents if teenagers are being beaten by their parents, which that should be a big felony for parents to spank teenagers, to spank into the teenage years and to beat into the teenage years. Of course, no child should be beaten. Nobody should be beaten, but especially into the teenage years, that should be a major felony for a parent to strike a teenager in the name of discipline or whatever. In cases like that, sometimes I think teenagers should use force, whatever is necessary. Even Martin Luther King Even he would use force if he really had to do so. If he was really threatened or assaulted, or as a very last resort, he would use enough force to stop an assailant or to stop a perpetrator if he really had to. He's a peaceful person, and that was only as a very last resort. That's from what I do know about Martin Luther King. That's the way he was. Only as a very last resort would he ever use any kind of force, but at least it was a resort. He wasn't like Gandhi, and that's how he's different from Gandhi. He was very much like Gandhi. From what I know about King, he based a lot of his ideals on Gandhi, but that's one way in which he was different. He would use force if he really felt he had to. He'd hope to not have to use it, just like I feel that same way. I would hope that teenagers wouldn't have to use force if nobody would assault them, then with paddles or belts or anything for that matter, then they wouldn't have to use force. And in the perfect world, that's how it would be. But this world is far from perfect. And so, like I said, we're going to get angry about that from time to time, about this world being far from perfect. And we should sometimes use that anger, but we should use it in a positive, constructive way. We have to be overall positive. Being young, being a teenager, it's a fun, adventuresome time. You start doing things for the first time, fun and exciting things like dating or learning how to drive or all these other really neat, fun, exciting things you get to do when you're a teenager. And that's how we should approach it. We have to be positive. We have to believe that we can change the way society mistreats youth. I think we can make a big difference. And I think we can make things much better if we just really put our effort to it and just remember to be positive. We need to be optimistic about this. So just remember, thank you all for watching. All you youth rights activists out there, just be positive, be optimistic. We can do it. Bye-bye.